There we go. Well, welcome to the Church of Our Ladies of the Pacific. And if you were here at this place this evening, the moon over the wall, that is something else.
The moon is beautiful.
Did it just for you.
Brenda and Chris, thank you so much. Lou, thank you for being here. Kayleen's on the far side and running the system this evening, the Executive Director, Technical Production, Heather Nicholson.
Oh,
good Heather.
So wherever you might be and whomever you've gathered at your place, welcome to worship this evening. Chris and Brenda, thank you.
That's quite all right.
Don't think it's just yet.
And you'll need to speak up nice and loud. A, because it's your place, and B, there's the mic.
Definitely.
All right. Well, this evening we're going to be looking into the story of Esther as we continue. Last week we were with Jesus as he gave us the golden rule. And what comes before the golden rule? Love the Lord your God with all your head, with all your heart, and with your hands. Well, that's the way we translate it. So what is it for us to then love our neighbours as ourselves, but using head, heart, and hands? And tonight's example is Esther, and we're going to have a little conversation about that and ask just sort of how that taps into our own lives. And we'll set a challenge, and each of us will ask to set a challenge for ourselves this week, how we might live in a way of obedience to Jesus with head, heart, and hands. A couple of bits of news. Now, first of all, trivia. Next Saturday night, which is the last Saturday evening of the school holidays, we've got a trivia night going just to get everybody back together. With the restrictions and so forth, we can have 45 people playing trivia. So it's the CCSA hall. The details will be on Facebook tomorrow. Free tickets. But the only way to sort those out is to go to the link and actually book them. We don't have the ability for people to say, but I called and left a phone message for you on Wednesday, Phil, or whatever. There's only 45 tickets, and when they're sold, they'll be sold. So we'll put that link up tonight, and tables of 5 or 6 people at a table would be about right. And be prepared, they're free tickets, but be prepared to chip in, say, $10 a table. And we're going to make a donation to Cleft Connect, which is the charity of our quizmaster, Peter Woff. So we're going to help out there and do something good for them. Our pop-up church. Anybody got any contacts in the real estate world?
No.
We've got an idea that there's a lot of vacant commercial premises up the main street. What would be the likelihood that we might be able to find one of those that's been empty for a while, and a real estate agent who might say, well, I'll let you have it every second Sunday for a couple of hours, Sunday morning during the markets, pop-up church. Have a think about it. And if you've got any connections in that part of the world, that would be good to let us know. Next week, the service will... we haven't got a name for Jossick's church.
Oh, it could be Mountain Views.
We're going to be at the Jossick's place. I think they're an Orthodox church. But we need a good name for the Jossick, the Cathedral of Jossick.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
St. Alexa's Cathedral. I don't think there's a St. Craig, sorry. So that's about it. Now, Kayleen, did you have our call to worship, our psalm? But you'll need to be closer to the mic for us to hear it. Our call to worship this evening is from Psalm 34.
Psalm 34. I will extol the Lord at all times. His praise will always be on my lips. I will glory in the Lord. Let the afflicted hear and rejoice. Glorify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together. I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame. This poor man called, and the Lord heard him. He saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the one who takes refuge in him. Fear the Lord, you his holy people, for those who fear him lack nothing. The lions may grow weak and hungry, but those who seek the Lord lack no good thing. Come, my children, listen to me. I will touch you, the fear of the Lord. Whoever of you loves life and desires to see many good days, keep your tongue from evil and your lips from telling lies. Turn from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are attentive to their cry. But the face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to blot out their name from the earth. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. The righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all. He protects all his bones, not one of them will be broken. Evil will slay the wicked, the foes of the righteous will be condemned. The Lord will rescue his servants. No one who takes refuge in him will be condemned.
Thanks, Karen. That is a beaut psalm that we might have confidence, absolute confidence, no matter what's going on in our lives. God is faithful and good to us. Now, we're going to spend some time in prayers of thanks, and this evening, and thank you, David McGregor. David has prepared an instrumental for us. He's called it Gratitude, and it's a couple of minutes. And during this time of silence, just where you are, perhaps bring your prayers of gratitude in quietness as you enjoy this music, but also perhaps type them in as comments so that other people can see the things that we're thankful for. So let's enjoy that. Thanks, Heather.
a beautiful Jewish girl chosen from amongst all the king of Persia's harem to be queen. When she is told by the only remaining member of her family, Uncle Mordecai, of a plot to kill all Jews in the empire, she has a choice. Esther is the only Jew who could perhaps approach the king and save all God's people. Time is running out, but she would risk her life to approach the king uninvited. First question, where is her heart? Esther chapter 4, verses 10 to 14. Then she instructed her servant to go back and say to Mordecai, all the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches
less stress on the link. I don't know. Right. Well, I'm going to have a bit of a yarn with Christine and Brenda and talk through the story of Esther. What were the sort of the first things that struck you two as you read that story again during the week?
Well, she was very courageous, I think. She had a real heart for the Jews, for her people, and she wanted to try and do what she could to help them in any way that she could and to preserve them, I guess, because otherwise they probably would have all been destroyed. So she had an integrity about her, I guess, and she really took up the challenge, to me, of putting herself in a position where she could help her own people.
Integrity and challenge. Brenda, how do those couple of words grab you?
Well, I think unless you have integrity and you cannot meet the challenge anyway a lot of the times. But with the story for me, with especially when she knew that she might be sent to the gallows or whatever from the king, she would have been quite scared about going into meet him, but she still met that challenge. And that to me was I was thinking about it and thinking, well, when have I felt that God's calling me to do something and either met the challenge or denied that challenge? And, there's some at times, I'm sure, when I haven't really, I've been touched by what I felt he's been saying to me, but I haven't reached out to meet that challenge, which really just upsets me now when I think about some of the things. But it's always there in the back of your mind.
let's think about this heart, head, and hands thing. And Esther's story really picks up all of these. The idea that we would be obedient to God, integrating all the parts of our lives. And I was looking at that question of the heart. Esther's in a very comfortable position. You know, in some ways, it's quite privileged. She's been chosen, everybody else, she's actually now the queen of Persia. But I wonder if that luxury has stolen her heart. And how does that happen to us?
Go on.
Oh, well, I was going to say, when I was at work, I had a real heart for making sure that I helped people and that I encouraged them. And that was the one thing that I really did have a big heart for. And I don't think I ever lost that. I don't think it was ever taken away. I was often put in a position, and it really went with when we grew as a hospital and we had a lot of different cultures in that hospital and a lot of different nurses coming through. And I had a real heart for ensuring that justice was given to them in that position. Mm-hmm. And I could have just sat in my ivory tower a little bit like Esther down in the hospital nurse manager's office, and just when they rang up and said, hey, there's somebody up here really giving me a hard time, I could have just sat there and said, okay, I know about it, that's fine. But the heart within me always took me to the ward to talk to them personally. And I reckon Esther would have never lost her heart for the Jewish people. And I never let my head get in the way of saying, I've got too much here to do. I need to see that person personally, because that was the heart that I felt I had for them. So I'd hope my heart would never be stolen to things like that, that I would never give up on that I would always go with my heart and go with wanting to encourage.
When we think about our hearts, you know, there is fear. You hear Esther say, hey, don't you know, Uncle Morty?
Yeah.
You know, and you ought to know, if I go into the king's presence unannounced, this could cost me my life. You know, there's some genuine concern in there that she has to overcome. And it's been 30 days since I was called in to see the king anyway. I mean, I don't know if I'm still in his favour.
Yeah.
Is she making excuses, or are there times in our lives when it's fair enough and we say, well, hang on, this is too big a deal?
Yeah, I think so. I can't think of any way that I've been in that position where I've been so challenged by something to do that I've been really scared of it. Although when I went on a mission trip with some friends from my previous church over to India, I must admit I was a bit scared about going there at the time and the situations I might be put into. But at no time when we were there did I actually feel threatened by anything. And I did feel the call of God to go there in the first place. So, and it was a great experience for me. It opened my eyes to things that I'd never been challenged with before to do.
Louina, do we sometimes need Uncle Morty, you know, that person in our lives who says, no, you can't cop out of this. Mm. And if you don't do it, well, God will find somebody else to do it. But it could be that you are the right person at this moment. Do we need Uncle Morty sometimes?
I think so.
Yep.
Definitely. Just that person to remind
that
you.
gnaws at you a little bit.
Yeah.
Just makes you get up and do what you need to do, or stick with what you're doing.
The polite word might be keeps you accountable.
Yeah.
But I think gives you a good swift kick in that it can also be.
And we've done that to each other at various times. We've felt that, go on, get out there and do it.
Yeah.
But that's a position of trust, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
very
about
much so.
being disciples together, following Jesus and being with others on that journey.
Yeah.
All right, well, in terms of head then, in the second part that Louina read to us, she says, all right, I've got to make a decision. I want you to pray and fast, and I'm going to do the same thing for 3 days. How does that praying help you make up your mind? How does that help clear your head?
Well, it's just an everyday thing. And you just have to, you learn to listen for what you know you should be doing, I think. And yeah, I mean, that's a bit, I don't know, I've always followed my head, I guess, and my heart. But I think that prayer just, like if Brenda's going to do something or I'm going to do something, or I get a good friend to pray for me to make sure that I'm on the wrong track. And right track, I mean, sorry.
That helps to be on the right,
I
yes.
put you on the right track.
That's
But
okay. I think
that
during the
prayer-
psalm, God was making sure our
Yeah.
phones didn't get broken instead of our bones, but that's okay too.
But I guess you learn to listen for what God's saying to you. But I mean, if I didn't pray about stuff, I wouldn't be anywhere. I wouldn't be going anywhere.
Brenda, how important is it not only to be praying yourself, but to know that others are also praying with you into a particular situation to help you get your head straight?
Yeah, it is very important, and I certainly felt those prayers when I had lots of hospitalisations, and I felt the prayers of the people then. And with the prayer ministry that I have in the church, the amount of times that people will ring me afterwards and say, thank you for those prayers that really carried me through. So people are very aware of, God with them in their times of a very big need as well.
Okay, so heart, head, hands. Now, just making some notes on this as I was thinking through it. The king is the most powerful person on earth. We can't overstate that. Back in the day, this is the guy who rules the whole world. Absolute despot. And yet, how do we see God as being the ultimate power? Esther has to come to a point where she sees, all right, this guy has the power of life and death over nations, but there's actually someone I answer to who is above that.
Well, we're in a very different position to what Esther was in those days, because we're fortunate to be able to have the Bible to read and to know and hear the words of our Lord saying to us that he will be with us always. And we know that. We really believe that and have our faith in God. We know that he will always be there. And so, we can step out with a bit of fear in our heart at sometimes, but knowing that God is with us.
I guess sometimes you don't think he's in control, but he is really, because he is all powerful. And I know that in lots of things that I've done during my life, if I just knew that he was there with me and he was going to get me through it, and he's who I answer to. And I was going to give a little bit of an example with that one about being in the right place at the right time, if I could.
Sure.
Because when I worked at Wesley, and we started it as a little hospital, and we operated Monday to Friday and no weekends. And as we grew, more doctors came on board and their demands were greater, and we went to operating on Saturdays and then Sundays. And when I got into the hospital nurse manager's office, I realised that we were operating on Good Friday. And God put me in, when I was out in the wards, I didn't realise that that's what was happening. We were just growing and growing, and we were getting less, not Christian-like, but I believe that some of our values and beliefs as a Christian hospital were being challenged. And so when I got into that position of authority that I had in that office, I really believed strongly that God was telling me that that wasn't something we should be doing as a Christian hospital. So I wrote to the general manager and I gave him all the reasons for not operating on Good Friday. And they had a battle with doctors over that. But I won. Well, God and I won. and to me, that was a time when I was just in the right place at the right time, and God used me in that position. And to this day, they still don't book operations on Good Friday, but they might have to do an emergency. But that was just the way we'd grown. And I think sometimes in our lives, we just continue to do things all the time, and we don't often stop to think about the purposes for doing them sometimes. And I think we have to question our beliefs and values continually every day to make sure that we're on that right track.
Cool. Thank you, Chris and Brenda. The next question. Oh, there we go. Sorry. That's dinner getting ready. I hope folks that whomever you've gathered with you at your place, you might have the opportunity to share a meal together this evening and to pray with one another as we come to a conclusion. I'm not going to ask Brenda and Chris this because it's a difficult question and it wouldn't be fair, but I ask us all, including myself. Esther is breaking the law. And she's facing the consequences of that. And I want us to think in the current context of the world, how do we think Christians might understand this story from so long ago today? How do you feel? How do I feel when I see other Christians breaking the law? Believing that they are called to challenge the law of the land in protest or in trespassing or in civil disobedience, or whatever it might be. Esther knows that she is breaking the law and there could well be consequences, including even her life, for this. If we say we follow God with our head, our heart, and our hands, how difficult could that be? I want to sum up this evening with a challenge for us this week. The whole idea of this month of head, heart, and hands discipleship is that each of us might prepare a challenge for ourselves. So where are we going first, Heather? Which one is it first? The monk. It's the, so we've got monk, thinking, using our head. Then we've got activist, who is using our hands. How are we going to work in that space? And then a cheerleader, somebody who's going to work with our hearts to bless others. Esther's first big question this evening, really the guts of this story. Who are your people? That's really what Mordecai asks her right at the beginning. Who are your people? Who is it that matters to you? Do you see yourself as the queen of Persia? Are your people all those folks? Or are your people God's people? Are your people those that are near and dear to the heart of God? So that's our question. So this week I want you to think, who's my people? Who is it that I want to bless and serve and sacrifice for? So I'll give you an example. I'll give you my example. Watching Landline, and I saw a story that Pip Courtney did about a lady named Mary out at Dalby who's doing work with mental health for blokes. The rate of suicide amongst fellas in the bush is just outrageous. And as somebody who's part of the veterans community, I understand some of that stuff about what PTSD and mental health can be for us. So this week I'm going to say those are my people. That's who I'm going to identify with and engage with. And in terms of my head, I'm going to learn some more about that. When I pray and when we do our devotions, I'm going to be thinking in those terms. I'm going to be mindful of other people and really think carefully about when I ask somebody, are you okay? What's really going on for you? Monk, head. Or what about in hands as an activist? Well, I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to ring some old mates that I know struggle with this stuff. And I'm going to say, hey, how you doing? Barrel, how are you, mate? It's been a while. I'm going to send some texts. And I'm actually going to find a couple of bucks and I'm going to track down this lady who's doing the Are You Bogged, which is a great way to think of mental health for farmers. I'm going to send her some dollars. I'm going to contribute to what she's doing. As a cheerleader, how am I going to engage in that? Well, I'm going to encourage people who work in this area. I'm going to write to her, track her down and say, hey, I saw you on the TV. I think you're doing a great job. All the best with it. So that's going to be my thing this week with head, heart and hands as I identify my people. And hopefully I'll be the right person at a right moment for somebody at that time. That's our challenge this week. Read the story of Esther. Got the links to the movie if you'd rather watch it. There's the children's Veggie Tales there as well. And there'll be daily devotions for us that Kate will put together during the week. But how will we be as disciples who follow Jesus, obeying God with head, heart, and hands? Yep. So I think we're, So we've done those through, Heather. I think it's probably time just to head over to there. So we're going to wrap up this evening. Just a couple of things. The opportunity is there for us to give, as always, and thank you. The slide should be up there with details of our bank account. One thing in this coming week, we've got a lot of fresh frozen meals, and they probably need to go out by the end of the first week in August. So if you know of some families who need a feed, please get in touch with myself or the Hindmarshes or Julianne Harding, and we'll make sure that those meals go to people who need them. We've got dozens of meals that we're ready to give out. So thank you all, every blessing. Who's got our benediction this evening? It's written down there somewhere. Here we go. Benediction comes to us from the book of Numbers. It's Moses blessing Aaron back in the day. Thank you for being with us this evening, wherever you might be. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. So go in peace, and this week, love and serve the Lord with head, heart, and hands. Pray for one another wherever you might be right now, and every blessing. See you next week from the Jossick's Place.
Thank you. Amen.